Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. Have I got a story for you? We call these things intelligent conversations. Our friends at Wise Markets have upgraded it to call it a wise conversation. And there's nothing more Baltimore than when, like, you sit at home, and this maybe the Dundalk guy in me, right? Anything that happens to anybody from Baltimore, and it's been this way. Maybe it's a newspaper guy in me or hometown pride. How dare a guy from Baltimore call a thing Baltimore Positive, right? But anytime like a minor league ball player does well, I follow them. Anytime an actor does well, we follow them, right? And then they're sort of viral sensations. And this guy came to me probably the same way he came to you, unless you grew up with him and you know him. And apparently half the people in my industry knew him because he was a budding journalist. And he never sent me a resume that I'm aware of, but I still owe Brett Hollander an apology because I filed his resume the wrong way and found it 10 years later. Deion Broxton came to me. I don't know. I was probably on my social media device. I have been to Yellowstone Park recently as a 50-year-old. I was actually talking a bit with Leonard Raskin about the great American adventure that I made to Montana. But Deion Broxton came to me last year avoiding some sort of herd. And it was sort of weird and viral and crazy. And I invited him on as a Baltimore guy. And he's since changed jobs, and he's just won a big award out in Iowa. And when I think of my journey for crab cakes this year, going from Ocean City out to Deep Creek Lake, I'm going to have 30 crab cakes in 30 days in August. We're going to have Maryland crabs. I think about people going all over the world and what they would do with their lives. And 35 years ago, I sent resumes everywhere, dreaming of working in places like Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I sent resumes to every newspaper in the world. Deion, you're living my dream, bro. I mean, you're getting chased by cattle and herds of wild animals in Yellowstone Park. Now you're out in Iowa winning awards, and you're a Baltimore guy, and I've never had you on, and I'm embarrassed. I mean, I really am, but it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm glad you finally said yes and decided to come on. I'm glad you're sporting your Raven thing, and I had you on after the draft instead of before, so we all sound smart now that we know who they drafted. But it's a pleasure to have you on, man. Congrats on your success, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't really want to leave Baltimore, but beggars really can't be choosers. So that's why I've been on this world tour.
So you're trying to get back. Is that what you're trying to do?
um, we'll see. I'll
Well,
just
I'm
say
trying to make
that.
it better that when you come back, better crab cakes, better beer, cleaner streets. Brandon Scott's working on. We're all working on that here. But give everybody your story because, I mean, I could show the video, and if you're not familiar with it, I would just tell people to go watch it because you've told the story a million times. It's your famous moment or whatever. But I mean, you've turned that into like this big award you've won, which we're going to talk about, and your journey. But I don't think you were thinking about that when you were out there. I mean, it's my worst nightmare. Every time I pulled the car over in Yellowstone, I'm looking for bears in the middle of summer. I'm looking for eagles to come down and pick me up. And my wife's like laughing at me, and I'm like, this is the wild part of the world out here. I think you learned that the wrong way, right?
Yeah, I always tell people I'm used to, like, no offense, people get angry when I say this sometimes, but I'm used to like rats and pit bulls growing up in Baltimore.
Where did
So
you grow up in Baltimore?
I grew up in the Oliver neighborhood, so Bond and Oliver, like probably about 5 blocks or so from North Avenue, 10 minutes north of Fells Point.
With a dream of being a sportscaster, right?
Yes, I was since middle school watching the Ravens, the Orioles. I was set out on being a sports reporter, and then
Sounds like a guy you're talking to. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
so my senior year of college, I was taking news reporting at Towson University, and I went out to cover the Freddie Gray protest slash, oh, I guess protest because the riots had already happened, and I saw like Lester Holt, Gerardo Rivera. I mean, just all the news cameras in front of City Hall, and I kind of became mesmerized by it. And it kind of bothered me that it wasn't that many Black people out there covering the story because I figured, like, I know guys like Freddie Gray, and I thought to myself, what if I could be the one to tell a story like this because I can relate to someone like Freddie Gray? So I always say that was like my moment where I knew I wanted to be a news reporter, and I've been hooked ever since.
Well, that's a beautiful story. So give me your journey, man. Like I really don't know other than you getting chased. And then how many people I know who know you, through Towson, through local media, through you trying to get a gig here. You never sent me a resume because you didn't want to be on radio because, like, you get a face for TV. I can tell. But, I used to interview and hire guys like you, 100 a year for 15 years, who wanted to do this, who wanted to get a job in Bemidji and carry a microphone or start in Salisbury, where Don Moeller is my high school guidance counselor, right? Don's my partner here at Baltimore Positive. On the first day I met Don Moeller, I was an Ovaltine. I was 13 years old, about this big and about this wide. And Don said to me, "You're going to be the next Chris Thomas." And Chris Thomas was, of course, legendary number two behind Vince Bagley, the dean, long before Jerry Sandusky, Viviano, any of those guys worked on the Hill. And I'm a kid, in the early 1980s. And Chris Thomas went and had a life in, tragically short life in Tampa, Florida, but was a star down there. The thing that occurred to me even then, like literally then, there was no Channel 45 then either, right? There were 3 channels, there were 6 seats. There was the number 1, the number 2. There were only 6 jobs in the whole city where you could be the guy with the microphone that you better really be good at it to get a gig. And I think now there's more gigs and more, ways. I mean, I'm broadcasting, we can all broadcast from our phones, but to get a gig, I don't know if it's more competitive, less competitive, the jobs pay less, the opportunities are there and all of that, but finding your way in this industry, I tip my cap to you because I don't know that I could go back and be your age and dream that dream again. It's amazing what you've done to get out there. So give me the story of how the kid from Towson winds up in the field. I need to know, Deion.
I think it's more competitive now because there's more faces and more voices out there. Of course, there are more platforms to talk, but I think it's more competitive because of that. Because you can shoot something on YouTube and put it online and send it to a news director. So for me, it was actually pretty difficult because being from Baltimore, people always make fun of our accents, but apparently my accent was too strong. So I thought that once I graduated Towson in 2015, I would just go become a news reporter. I must have applied to, like, if I were to guess, maybe 70, 60 places from December of 2015 to June of 2018. I've had to apply to like 70 places, and I didn't get not one call back. And I remember in summer of 2017, I had a news director from Gainesville, Florida, call me. At this point, I had worked for Channel 2 for 4 months, and I worked for WJZ for a year and a half.
That's why
So
everybody knows you. I mean, literally
exactly.
every Jamie Costello, when you got famous, man, my timeline blew up because I've been doing this a long time, and that's why everybody was cheering for you, man.
Yeah, it was pretty much my plan B to get to plan A. Everyone always says, just get your foot in the door. So when I wasn't getting any calls back to be a reporter, I'm like, okay, how can I get to my plan A? And everyone said, just, get your foot in the door. So I learned the craft while behind the scenes. So in 2017, I had a news director from Gainesville, Florida, tell me, I like you a lot, I like your resume, but your accent is too strong for me. And I was angry when they said that. So I didn't get the job. And then I hired a speech pathologist and I worked with her for 4 months. And I put out a new, while doing that, I was working at Channel 2 and
Was that a
WJZ.
recommendation that someone made for you with the
Speech
speech?
pathologist,
Yeah.
I had people say it, but they weren't like, they didn't say it was necessary. They said consider it. And when that was the closest I ever came to getting an on-air job. So when that news director told me that my accent was a problem, that's when I took it
Is that
seriously.
like a
Okay,
coach telling a pitcher he needs to work on a new
yeah.
pitch? Literally, right?
And I have no animosity towards that news director. He was the first person to tell me what I need. I mean, people said it, like consider it, but having someone who was in a position to hire me say it made all the difference in the world. So that's when I did it. And during that time, I was still shadowing reporters at Channel 2 and WJZ, giving me pointers and stuff like that, getting my reps, practicing in front of the camera. And after I finished my speech training, I put a new YouTube link up and sent it out. I had 3 job interviews in 1 week after that.
So where were they? Because the story you're giving, dude, I was a kid working at the paper, and ask anyone. I was so ambitious, right? Like I knew every sports editor in the country. Every one of them, I was a pain in the ass. I sent resumes out. I got busted one time, like doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing with the mail, mailing out resumes and using the copier. And I'm like, I'm happy to pay. I'm here. I need a gig, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they all knew. And I had a chance to work in Appleton, Wisconsin. I turned down a job in Anchorage, Alaska. Like I think, and I was a kid. I was 20 years old. I flew to Miami. They put me up at the Marriott and bought me shrimp cocktail. I watched Die Hard, in the Marriott, and like I got interviewed by like these legendary Miami Herald people, Ed Pope and stuff. But I was and they only interviewed me because I was Hispanic. It was Miami, and I was a
Mm-hmm.
member of the National. I mean, this is 35 years ago. I'm going back to 1988, 89, 90. And I was the kid that always wanted to go on that trail. And it's funny how life works out. I never left. I never left. I was nationally syndicated. It still never left. But
Mm-hmm.
the path that people like yourself, you know, Sam down in Jacksonville, worked here forever and made a life in Jacksonville for 40 years. I have him on all the time. He's a Hall of Fame voter in Jacksonville. He was there when the minute the team came, right? So all of these people that had a dream to be a sportscaster that move on to other places, I never left, right? I guess I created my own gig. But man, you're on a pathway now of like, so 3 places. Where could they have been, and how'd you wind up on a hill in Montana?
So the first job offer I got, it was Peoria, Illinois. The guy called me. I still have the voicemail saved because it's like I'm never going to delete it. And he said, "Hey, I have an opening here. I just saw your reel, and what do you think about coming here?" And then I did some research on Peoria, and no offense, it didn't seem like a great place. The only thing I can tell you about Peoria is that Richard Pryor is from there. So then Macon, Georgia called me. That was probably the best of the 3 gigs because they had a lot of reporters there. The news was good, a lot of, crime,
I almost took
corruption.
a job covering Auburn football in Columbus. And I thought Columbus would be the strangest place because it's on the timeline. So if you
Hmm.
live on the east side of town, you're in East Coast time. And I thought, I'm 19 years old. I'm looking it up in a Rand McNally map. I didn't know anything. Yeah, I guess I knew a little bit about the South, but like, I wouldn't take it. I turned down all these gigs to stay here
Yeah.
to be an agate clerk because I was like, I'm not going there. You know what I mean?
I,
Sounds sexy and all till you get there, and your options are Waffle House and Pancake Huddle House. You know what I mean?
ex-
Like for me,
exactly.
but keep going. So Macon, Georgia, get good food in Macon, Georgia. Now go ahead.
But I have family in South Carolina, and we
Okay.
would go visit them all the time. So I know how hot it is in the South, and I'm just like,
And you're
I
like, that can't be far from Atlanta. And then you're like, that's not
yeah.
close to Atlanta.
No, and it's hot, and it's hot like 10 months. I remember being in South Carolina back in 2012. It was like 74 degrees in January, and it was just too hot for me in January. Imagine what it's like in the
So then you went to
summertime.
Montana and Iowa.
And
Ah.
but I didn't even apply to Montana because when I applied to Macon, Georgia, the company Sinclair, which is based in Baltimore, my resume and my reel was in the Sinclair portal.
Okay.
So
So like a
Montana,
human resources
yes.
situation. Okay, sure.
So
Okay.
Montana found me. So when they called me, I'm like, there's no way on God's green earth that I am going to Montana.
God's green earth is Montana.
Exactly. So they were aggressive though with me. They kept following up. They made it feel like family. I remember doing a Skype interview
Hey,
with
and
my
you had never been to you
no.
got this job on Skype, literally.
Yes. Yes.
So the
And
first time you landed in Montana was when you had a gig in your shiz. You had your stuff with you.
yes.
Where'd
And
you
I
go? What town were you in? Great Falls?
Bozeman.
Bozeman. Bozeman's beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah,
They're
Bozeman is
all
the most
beautiful, but
yeah,
yeah.
Bozeman is the most popular city in Montana. Now the most populated is Billings, then Missoula, then I believe it's Bozeman if I'm not mistaken. But 4 million people travel through Bozeman a year because of Yellowstone, Big Sky. Big Sky, the Yellowstone Club. That's where like the Kardashians, Justin Timberlake, all those famous people go to ski. So like Bozeman is like really popular. But I remember when I was interviewing with my boss, he turned his webcam around to show me the mountains. to like, look how beautiful this is. And I'm like, I am a kid from Baltimore. Seeing mountains don't do anything for me. So I
Dude,
don't
you
know
got a
why you.
famous picture, but look at that, man. There's me and my wife in
Yep,
Bozeman. What do you think of that, right?
yep, that's right by the
Tree City, USA says so
yep,
right there on the top, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's a, I mean, to me it's like a utopia. It's very white, not it's like no black people there, but it's a nice community. And I remember like how nice the people were. Like in Iowa, they have a thing called Iowa Nice, but like to me, people in Montana were the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And it was hard for me being there for
Man, a
two
kid
years.
from West Baltimore living in Bozeman. So you drove or you flew?
I drove three
So you
days.
brought it. You took all your stuff 3 days. So did you see some of the country? I mean, this is, dude. I gotta have you back. I gotta hear more about this, man. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I didn't want to talk football with you yet. I'll have you on next month talk football. But like, I'm so fascinated by this because like, it's just awesome and ballsy and cool. And
Yeah. And before that, before I went to Montana, I've been up and down the East Coast, been to Miami, been to Chicago, been to LA. So I never saw the middle part of the country. I remember when I got to Minnesota, the sky opened up because we used to seeing like buildings and stuff in the city skyline. I've never seen like the wide open sky. And I remember getting to Minnesota and seeing these big storm clouds. I can see the entire storm cloud. And I said, "Oh my God, is this America?" And I was afraid the whole time driving there because you can see the entire storm cloud. And there was even a point where it was raining so bad that I almost got stuck at a gas station because the parking lot was overflowing. And then as I left Minnesota, there was a tornado and I couldn't get any reception because it was the middle of nowhere.
so this is summertime. You did this.
Yeah, summertime. This is
See, it's a good thing you didn't stop in Minnesota because the mosquitoes would have eaten you. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
like,
Yeah. And a tornado warning came on the radio. I couldn't listen to like my music because I had no service. A tornado warning came on the radio. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to die on my trip to Montana. But luckily, everything went smoothly. I stopped at Mount Rushmore in South Dakota because I figure I probably will never be near Mount Rushmore ever again in my life. So why not? So then I remember arriving to Bozeman, and it's small. I mean, it's a city, but it is not Baltimore. It's like your kind of western, Montana
so how
town.
old were you when you landed there?
25.
You're 25. So when I worked at the newspaper in the 80s, and my assistant sports editor is one of the most amazing people in my life, Mike Marlowe. If anybody knows Mike Marlowe, he's the quiet man behind the scenes. He was like a big brother to me back in the day, and he was my boss when I was a kid. From the time I was 17 to 23, working at the Evening Sun in the sports department, dreaming of being a sports writer. I didn't really dream of being on TV. I dreamed of being Oscar Madison. I wanted to be Mike Lupica or Ken Rosenthal. Like, I wanted to be the columnist guy. I'm a writer, even though I've 30 years of doing radio and now TV, but I was a writer. So Mike Marlowe left the paper when I left in January. We left on Martin Luther King Day, January 15th, 1992. I got in my car and I drove to Minnesota for the Super Bowl, the Thurman Thomas Super Bowl. That's what I did with my buyout money and my week off. I literally drove to that the Bills Redskins Super Bowl. And one of my best friends, he was my boss, one of my best friends, he took a job in Great Falls, Montana as the sports editor of the Great Falls, Montana. And he loved to fish. He wasn't a hunter, but a big fisherman, big outdoors guy, photographer like that. And he went out there in 1992. And in 1994, in the middle of the baseball strike, I was now doing radio, and he invited me out. I flew to Great Falls. So I was 25. Yeah, I was 25, your age. And I had never been. Montana was a thing on a map to me, right? I mean, there's no internet. It's 1994. Pearl Jam, their bass player went to the University of Montana, from that part of the world. They had a show. They were one of the biggest bands in the world, and they were playing the Frank Smith Center, the basketball arena where the Grizz play and the Lady Grizz, who were more famous then.
I've been
Um,
there.
by the way, Pat Kennedy coached that team before he came to Towson, right? So I flew out to Great Falls and spent a week February in February
I know it was
in
rough.
Great Falls, and then we drove from Great Falls to Missoula. That's not close. It's not close at all. Google it, right? I saw the same thing you saw, dude. I'm from Dundalk, right? So, like, you're in a different situation in West Baltimore, but like I didn't see any big sky. Biggest sky I saw was in Ocean City looking east, as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm out there in Great Falls, Montana, and we're driving. I'm seeing eagles. Like he's taking me places. I landed, it was like 10 below. When I left, it was like 75 degrees. It was like a warm front. And I
Wow.
saw it snow. I saw a foot of snowfall. I drove everywhere and it saw creeks and stuff. And I never went back again. This is 1994. So I was 25. 3 years ago. My wife loves the outdoors. She's in the hills in New Hampshire with her sister right now, climbing mountains, right? She loves that more than I do. And she'd always wanted to go to Yellowstone. And Pearl Jam was playing the stadium under the big M in Missoula 3 summers ago before COVID. And I said to my wife, this is our chance. This is my chance to tell you about that Montana sky that I've
Yep.
seen forever. And you can go Google it. I mean, if anybody followed our trip 3 years ago out on Facebook, we flew into Boise. We went through one of the greatest places I've ever been, Craters of the Moon, east of Idaho. If you've never been, it's like, go see it. You should see it. But we did Montana, and we were there during fires, Deion. So when we drove into Bozeman, we had come through the mountains, and it was. I saw an actual forest fire, and I'm sure you have as well. I've never seen anything more powerful in my life, brother, ever.
I guess it was probably 2 years ago. I had to cover the North Hills fire in Helena, which is the state capital. And Helena is about an hour and 15 minutes from Bozeman. Now, I've covered up until this point, I've covered fires before, but I couldn't really see flames. I could just see smoke. So when I pulled up to this fire, I could see flames from the highway. And I said, oh my God.
Dude, if I pull the video up that I shot on that highway, and of course there's signs out and it says, don't stop, don't take pictures.
It's
Everybody's pulled over
amazing.
taking pictures.
It's amazing.
And you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you haven't seen a car in an hour. You've been driving 50 miles and you pull up and the entire everything you see is an inferno on fire. And when you grow up on Pennsylvania Avenue or you grow up on Bank Street like me, you know what you say? Well, the fire trucks will be here soon.
Yeah.
Ain't no fire trucks coming out on the hills. We were going to Big Sky, Montana. And Deion, this is truth. We had a beautiful little place we found on the internet, and we went to have some barbecue on a summer night. We had been driving through the fires, and I'm out in the hill, and I had my drink out in front of me, and I started to see stuff flying into my drink. And it was dark because you can't see your hand in front. It's Montana.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, we're out having a beer. It's 9:00 at night. Somebody's strumming a guitar, and we're like, let's go listen to the guitar. And all of a sudden, the ash is falling out of my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy hell, there's ash flying from the sky. It's in my drink. What the hell? We woke up in the morning. I blew my nose. It was as black as your shirt.
Yep.
Like, I don't think if you've never been in a fire, like, I'm sure I was there 3 days, dude. You lived there. The fact that like cattle or herd of whatever was chasing you. Can I take a break and do a second segment with you? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Deion Broxton is here. If you saw his video, he was chased in Montana, and this is where I want to pick it up because I want you to tell that story, but I don't want you to do it fast. Deion Broxton is here. Follow him out on Twitter. He's in Iowa now via Montana, and I am living the Chevy Chase vacation dream through him. I want to hear the Montana story. We'll pick up more with Deion right after this at Baltimore Positive.